Have you ever wondered how a TTRPG real play show comes together, or what it's like to juggle multiple podcasts? Well, today I talk with Logan Vo, fellow podcaster and recent guest DM on our very own 5e real play segment, Chord vs. Cryptid. Logan and I discuss his real play podcast, Lost Legends Tales of Thurne, how it all started, how it's going, and you'll get to know the man behind the voice of Big Boots, the magnificent barbarian gnome. So stick around because it's time to get geeky with Kiki. How are you doing today, Master Vo?
I'm good. How you doing, Kiki?
I am fantastic. I just want to say this. You guys have done such a great job pulling me into the story and the characters immediately.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. It means a lot.
Every one of you meshes together just perfectly. And the fact that there's some intense moments and absolutely hysterical things going on in just the first 10 minutes of that podcast, it was so much fun. And you guys also had me after you made the Zap Brannigan reference.
Yeah, we're all kind of nerds. What's interesting, you say we meshed really well. That first two episodes actually was the first time we all played together as a group together.
One of my questions was going to be, did you guys have a zero session? So you guys, did you do that?
No, we originally wanted to, but we were kind of cut for time when things started to roll. So no pun intended there actually. But things started to get going. We're like, all right, well, let's do a practice episode, and then just we had to skip that. And it's like, all right, well, I want to release by this date, so let's go live. Let's just do it. Yeah, so we all know each other except Joey and Sterling, the voice of Magna and Callie, don't really know each other that well. They only know each other through me. So it was really their first time kind of meeting. Ben, Alec, and I have all played together before, but it was me as the GM, and we haven't played together for like 8 years. So that was the first time in a long time him and I, the three of us, got together to RPG.
Wow. That impresses me even more actually because I was gonna say, so just so everybody listening knows what we're talking about, yeah, Ben is your DM/GM.
Hmm.
Alec plays Theron. Sterling plays Kalanon or Callie. Joseph is Magna,
Yep.
and you are the magnificent Big Boots.
Oh, the magnificent big boots. I like that.
Magna, Joseph
Hmm.
being the new guy. So you're telling me that he literally just walked in with that character and was just like, boom.
Yeah, yeah. When I was putting together the team of who I wanted on the podcast, I chose Joseph because he had never played any RPG before. And I wanted to see me personally, I wanted to see him grow as a player and a podcaster, but also wanted the audience to see it as well. So those first couple episodes, you can kind of tell he's a little timid, doesn't really know how to play. But then by episode 10 or 11, he really starts to get the feel of his character, understand his character, and just more comfortable in general being on mic. And you can really see him open up. And I really have enjoyed watching him grow as a performer. And I want the audience to be able to see that also.
The dynamic between Big Boots and Magna is one of the reasons why I kept listening.
Oh, awesome.
Not that I don't adore everybody else, because I do. They're all fantastic in their own way, but the 2 of you, I just re-listened to episode 1 again, and it made me laugh all over again. It's like, I don't wanna spoil anything, but there is this dynamic there that reminded me of a character, Master Blaster.
Okay, yeah, yeah. From Thunderdome, yeah.
Yep.
Very, very Master Blaster-ish. I never thought of that. That was all organic as well. We didn't plan that interaction, so, I just kinda went for it, and he played along, so it was fantastic.
Okay, so that actually answered one of my questions, which was, was that sort of planned at all? But it just happened.
Yeah, everything's on the spot. When we start a session, Ben's like, "Alright, this is what happened last time," and we just go. We don't plan anything out. It's really real play. I like to stick to that as much as we can, and I think we do a really good job of making sure everything is in the moment.
So going back for just a second, was there any kind of particular inspiration, any other podcasts that you would listen to that you wanted to emulate or you wanted to do something different?
So they say in podcasting, you don't want to be like the host you like. You don't want to copy a podcast you like. And as much as every independent podcaster tries to go by that, you end up doing it a little bit, especially with RPG podcasts, which are really popular right now. The one podcast that made me want to really try to do a real play was The Adventure Zone by, the My Brother and Me podcast.
Gotcha.
The way they do it is they're a family of brothers and a dad, and it's more comedy based, more story based. I listened to a couple other tabletop RPG podcasts, and they're really more like rule lawyers, is what they call it, and very combat heavy. So it was a little difficult to listen to. I would usually stop after a couple of episodes, but with Adventure Zone, they were more story based and just more comedy based. And I loved that, and I just love that idea. So that's kind of where the inspiration for Roll for Damage came from.
And it works because I am not someone who wants to sit there and listen to 3 hours of getting ready for the fight.
Right, exactly, and who wants to listen to an hour and a half, 2 hours of, "Okay, roll your die for hitting," and like, "Okay, you hit him. Okay, now your turn." It's just when I started the podcast and I went to Ben to be the DM, interesting enough, I had never played with him as a DM, which I mentioned before, so I didn't fully know his style, but I had faith in him as a person that he could pull it off of, "Let's make this more story-based, let's do good character backgrounds, and if you could make me cry as a player, let's fucking do it."
Yes.
Slight spoiler, eventually in the season, I do cry on mic.
Aw.
Yeah, so he knocks it out of the park, making it story driven, and if he ever does an interview like we do in the top 5, he says he wants to make it story driven, which he does great at.
Yes, like, I am there, and Ben's actually gonna be on this show, probably airing right after yours, like, the
Ooh,
next week.
spoilers.
Just a tad, right? Because he has written all of this, right? This is, like, a world that he created.
Yeah, it's a homebrew world for sure.
Yeah, so that makes it even more interesting to me because that is something that I definitely wanna get into myself. I'm technically homebrewed forever, but not put it out there.
So you talked about how Big Boots is magnificent. Interesting anecdote. So of all my friends in real life who listen, I'm like, "Oh, hey, do you listen to the show?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I love the show. My favorite character is a Magna or Callie." And I'm like, "I'm not your favorite character. Big Boots isn't. I'm your real life friend. You don't even know those hobos, but you're gonna say I'm not your favorite." They're like, "Oh, no, no, fuck Big Boots." Like, "Oh, all right, thank you."
Wow, wow. It's difficult to talk about Big Boots and not give away too many spoilers. He gets a lot of stuff done. That is one of the questions I have. Were you surprised by exactly how much you were able to accomplish in just the first 9 episodes?
So something huge happens in the first 9 or 10 episodes that we're still feeling the effects of into episode 20, into the season finale. I was absolutely surprised. Ben kinda let me take the ball and run with it a little bit, let me have creative freedom, I suppose, within his world. I guess there's a few huge things that happen, but, like, there's one monumental one I'm thinking of. Even to a lesser extent of episode 4, something big happens, 6, 7. So, yeah, he kinda just let me have free reign in his world, and he just kinda rolls with it and makes me deal with the consequences, which is a lot of fun also.
Yes, consequences.
There are a lot of them.
So, how long was Big Boots, like, inside your head before you decided to create this character? Or was it just like, boom, happening?
So he starts off as a gnome barbarian and then goes into bard. The character I actually played Big Boots on another campaign off mic. It was a 3.5 game instead of a 5e game, which is what we play here. And that Big Boots was kind of the same idea. It's based off Joey and I's mutual friend. I just kind of turned him up to 11 and kind of added my own flair of my own personality in there. So it's kind of an amalgamation of him and I just turned up. And then that campaign, I played him much more chaotic neutral than in this. In that campaign, he was pretty much kidnapping people to start a cult. And the DM in that game let me have free reign with that as well. And then that campaign just kind of fizzled out after about 10 or 11 sessions. So I was like, man, I loved that character, Big Boots. He was so much fun to play. I think I can make him into a more likable version, just made him more relatable, more likable, I guess.
Well, I think he's likable, so
Well, thank you.
is there anything else that you wanna add?
We're making it more story based. Honestly, interesting story. We record episodes 2 or 3 at a time. That first session recorded the first 2 episodes, and I almost lost them because my hard drive crashed.
Oh,
So, you notice a slight increase on sound quality between the 2nd and 3rd episode, so if you can kinda get through that, and then also, like I said, it was our first time playing together as a group, so I feel maybe the first 2 episodes are kind of maybe awkward-ish. Maybe the listener doesn't notice, and I just notice, but, really, if you give the show a try, Give it 3 episodes at least, 'cause the story really kicks off after the 3rd episode, and that's when I think you'll fall in love with the show. Or in your case, after the 1st episode.
Yeah, yeah. I like I said, I enjoy the story. It didn't take very long for me personally to start cackling and being like, "These guys are funny," and I enjoy that too.
Yeah.
There are definitely some serious moments in the first 10 episodes, but for the most part, you guys are having a blast, and I can tell that you're having fun, and then I have fun. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's a ton of fun.
you just said that you were breaking this into seasons. So,
Mhm.
what is the last number gonna be then? Is it 21 or
For this season,
yeah.
once you get into a little further into the, series, I do a little social cut-in where I plug social media and stuff, and then now we're on the network, I plug the network. I kinda leave it ambiguous of how many episodes we have. Between 23 and 25, I'll leave it at that, of how many episodes are in the season.
When you did your interview with Top 5 of Death,
Mhm.
I discovered that you and we worked somewhere in common.
Okay, where'd we work?
We both worked in a comic book shop.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Obviously different ones, but, yeah, I was like, "Oh, fellow comic book nerd, yes."
Yes, huge comic book nerd. That's where I met Ellie, actually. She was the manager of the comic book store, and I kinda snuck in and was like, "Give me a job," and she's like, "You're cute." "Yeah," and then we started dating after that. Ellie is my co-host on Sleep with the Light On.
Yes, I was just gonna say that's Andrew, which I guess you've known Andrew for a while, right?
Mhm, since high school, so 10 years.
And then Ellie, who, by the way, I think that we should be best friends because she likes a lot of the same movies that I do.
Really? All the weird,
Yeah.
obscure, horrible '70s movies?
That and she does the foreign films.
Mhm.
You guys are gonna be doing the hosts on Sleep with the Light On, and that is one of my favorite movies. So I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'd never even heard of it. A lot of these movies that Ellie brings for the show, I've never even heard of, and some of them Andrew hasn't even seen. That's what's fun because Andrew's supposed to be another huge horror nerd, and some of these Ellie brings he's never heard of. So it's been kind of fun for both of us to learn. So the concept of Sleep with the Light On is Ellie and Andrew are huge horror super fans, and I haven't seen any horror movies because I was terrified as a child to see them. So now that I'm 30, we're kind of going back and they're showing me these movies. We review them.
And you had said now you're just a terrified 30 something
Yes,
instead
I'm a
of a child.
terrified 30-year-old child now, yes.
So far of what you reviewed, what's your favorite movie that you've, I say, had to watch? Forced to watch? No.
Yeah, forced to watch. So when I get asked that, "What's my favorite movie?" and then, "What's my favorite episode?" They're very different. My favorite movie we've watched, and it's the only movie I've rewatched from the 25, 26 years that we've done, is The Thing. I love The Thing. That was such a good movie.
Yes.
Yeah, The Thing is awesome. So you see references to it throughout pop culture, but I never really knew what it was. But to see the origin of those things is so cool because it's like, oh, that's where that reference from like that TV show I saw 10 years is from. Okay, well, that's awesome. All right.
That is, if not my number 1 movie, it's definitely in my top 5 of all-time movies. Definitely my number 1 as far as a horror movie goes. I loved everything about it, even as a kid, because I was actually, like, alive when it came out, so
Oh, okay.
I'm old.
You're dating yourself here.
It's fine, whatever, I don't know. I think I mentioned it with someone else too. Oh, in my I did an interview with someone else, and I was being interviewed, and they were, "Oh, women don't like to tell their age." I was like, "I don't care. I don't look like I'm as old as I am, so it's fine. Plus, I know a lot of stuff."
Hell yeah.
Excellent choice in your movie, but you have a favorite episode, though, that's not the same.
No, my favorite episode from season 1 is probably It. The movie was fine, but I think that episode's really good. That's the episode where Andrew kinda comes out of his shell a little more. He's more comfortable in Mike and has more fun with it, and then we just did Night of the Living Dead last month, and I think that was a really, really good episode as well.
I need to get a little bit caught up on that. I got up to The Witch that you guys did.
Mhm. Which was a good movie too. I think that's probably my 2nd favorite movie we've watched.
I enjoyed that, and I liked the conversation you guys had about if you believed magic was real or not.
Mhm. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I thought it was hysterical that you were like, "Oh, I dabbled in chaos magic," and I'm like, "I dabble in chaos magic
Oh, nice,
currently."
alright.
JC and I have talked about this a lot on Mission Spooky, which is that it is all about the power of your own mind making things happen.
Okay.
If you get that enough even enough people or you have that, like, positive can-do attitude towards whatever you want to happen. The items that you're using in chaos magic, for example, those are just like a vehicle. You're creating your own universe almost.
Mhm.
It's really weird and messed up and strange. But JC doesn't believe that any of that's possible. So
That's interesting. I'm kind of on the fence. I dabbled a little bit in chaos magic, like I mentioned in that episode, and then I kind of stopped because I'm like, all right, it kind of works for me, but it kind of doesn't. But I'm not sure if I fully believe, so maybe that's why it's not working all the way. But Ellie is a huge believer in magic. She doesn't do chaos magic, just kind of like she calls herself like a low grade witch, is what she calls herself.
I love that too. I was like,
Yeah.
she's great.
um, she kind of says magic's like a cat. Like you can call for it all you want, but if it's gonna ignore you, it's gonna ignore you. But if you show it some love and care, it will come up and sit on your lap once in a while and be a friend, or it could bite you in the hand if you annoy it. Because I was a huge skeptic of everything before we started dating. She's kind of like opened my mind quite a bit to things like that. She did like a tarot card reading for me for the beginning of the year. She's like, hey, you want to do a big like 12 card pull for your year, see what your year's gonna have. I'm like, all right, sure, yeah, whatever. And it was incredibly positive. She's like, holy shit, like usually no one's poll is this positive. So, she broke it down like, well, this is what podcasting is gonna do for you this year, and this is what your work life and your health and everything's gonna do for you. And it was all super positive. And so far it's been pretty much working out the way she said. So the way I attribute that is like you said, it's positive reinforcement. If you put forth that effort, it'll come true. And that's how I've kind of approach like, okay, so the card said I could have a really good year, let's work towards that. And it like kind of inspired me to have a good year regardless of the whole pandemic thing. My personal life has been pretty good
Right?
so far.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that analogy. Like you and I kind of have that same feeling of, if you put it forth, it'll be good for you if you put in the effort.
Ellie's like right on with the cat thing. You can't say it any better. If you put something in it, you're probably going to get something out of it. Just make sure that it's positive.
Hmm.
I always tell people that with anything that you're doing. I'm like, as long as you're thinking positive, don't be like, oh, I'm gonna murder this person. No, no,
Yeah.
that's terrible. No, you shouldn't do that. That's
Don't be
bad.
hexing motherfuckers.
Well, okay, hold on.
Well,
Who are we hexing?
I have a list, but we're not going to talk about that right now.
That's what JC always says too. He's like, I have a list. It's like, am I on it? Not yet.
Not yet.
Anything else you want to tell us about Sleep with the Light On?
So that was my very first podcast that I did. We've been doing it a little over a year now, probably a year and a half actually. And that one, we were all learning at the same time. So I would say honestly, if you give it a try, skip the first 5 episodes, even if you like a movie in there, and just pick a movie that you like because honestly, those first 5 episodes were really rough. We had a whole different mic setup. We've upgraded sound quality immensely since then, and just have learned to grow from there. So yeah, find a movie 5 and up that you like, and just give that one a try.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way about Mission Spooky. If I could go back and redo like the first 3 episodes, that'd be
Yeah, that's the thing about podcasting when you start out. It's like your first couple are gonna suck. That's just a fact. But like a lot of new listeners, those are the ones they go to. It's like, no, please don't. No, try like episode 15 or something like instead.
yeah, I've been pushing people from like episode 10 on.
Yeah.
We changed the format in 10 and added our local musicians segment too.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's just kind of completely different. Well, I think we did our review of Hellier. Have you watched that yet?
Hellier, yes, of how much attention I paid to it. I'm kind of a bad person at like watching stuff because like I'll have it on the background when I'm doing stuff, or I'm just playing on my phone. And I kind of like breeze through season one, not even realizing it. And then I'm like, as I'm starting to pay attention, like, oh, what the hell's going on? This is like really wild. And I realize it's like halfway through season two. I'm like, oh, all right, I have to go back and rewatch this because this is getting like really interesting. Because when I first watched it, I thought it was a mockumentary. I didn't know it was a real documentary that they actually did. I was like, oh, all right, now let's go back and watch this with serious eyes.
Yes, please just go back and watch it again.
Yeah.
I think you'll enjoy it. And when you're finished, at some point, I'll ask you the $1,000,000 question on that one, which is how many synchronicities have you had in the last 24 hours? Crazy. It is a crazy show. A lot of
Hmm.
fun. I'm going to be doing our little 5 questions that we're always going to ask everybody at the end of every interview.
Okay.
So the first one is, since I do know that you like comics,
Hmm.
do you have a favorite superhero?
That's a really interesting question, Kiki. So, do you want Marvel or DC?
I love the fact that you already, as well as I do, I have completely separate likes for Marvel and DC. So, yeah, keep them separate because I wanna know that.
Okay. So Marvel is really easy. I grew up a Marvel fanboy. Easiest one to say, Nova. Both Richard Rider and Sam Alexander. They are my favorite Marvel superheroes for sure. Because I grew up in that early 90s, late 80s. That's when the new Warriors were coming out and Nova had his run. And as I was growing up and learning comics, I wanted more of that. So I found old Nova comics. I guess like at that time, they would have been 10 years old. So Richard Rider Nova is fantastic. Love him. And then when I worked at the comic book store, Sam Alexander Nova came out, and I'm like, oh, hell yeah, a new Nova, and just fell in love with that character. That story of that first arc is really, really good. So 100% Nova.
Awesome. I am also more of a Marvel than a DC because my first was X-Men.
Yeah, I read lot of X Men as a kid too.
It was early '80s though, X-Men. So Storm was my first favorite. But anyway, I
Nice.
digress. What's your DC?
So as an adult now, after working at the comic store, I actually am more of a DC fan than Marvel. So I kind of got away from my nostalgia for Marvel. DC gets complicated. I have to say, probably just the Green Lantern universe in general as part of the DC, because I don't know what my favorite Green Lantern is, because I love each of them for different reasons. Hal Jordan, Kyle Reiner. I even like Guy Gardner. That's how much of a nerd I am. I really like Guy Gardner. And Guy Gardner might be my favorite Green Lantern. But just the whole universe of the different color lantern cores, but I love Shazam, I love Constantine, I love Superman and Hawkman. So I it's hard to pick a favorite for DC.
It is a hard question for anybody who is already a comic book fan.
Mhm.
You're gonna have multiple levels of your love for different things and reasons why. So, no, that's cool. Green Lantern is a very interesting kind of like universe in itself. You're right.
Yeah. But then like probably my favorite comic book storyline has been Darkest Night and Brightest Day. Those were fantastic. That's the storyline that got me back into comics after not reading for probably 8 years or so.
I was not working in the shop at the time, but my husband wound up running over and grabbing like that whole series when it was coming out. And then it trickled down to me through him saying, I know you're not a huge Green Lantern fan, but I think you might enjoy this. And yeah, awesome. Great choices, man.
Yeah, it's a fantastic series.
Do you have a movie that you could watch like a million times?
I have 2, if that's okay. Can I cheat a little bit and say 2?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. RoboCop. Absolutely love RoboCop. On Sleep with the Light On, Andrew and I are huge RoboCop nerds, so there's some episodes where we end up, like, stop talking about the movie we watched and just talk about RoboCop. The original, not the remake from a couple years ago. I never saw
Right,
that
right.
one. And then Monty Python's Holy Grail.
Dude, I have to tell you something.
Hit me.
I went to Catholic school and we had an art teacher who and this is how long ago I was in high school. We still had, like, the VHS recorder thing.
Mhm.
He brought Monty Python's The Holy Grail to Catholic school.
Ooh.
We watched it every single day while we were in art class. Every day.
So that's awesome for me. What's your opinion on the movie then?
Oh, dude, I can quote it.
Alright, alright. Well, I didn't know it was a situation where like, well, I'm a good Catholic girl. Of course I hated it.
We just talked about me doing chaos magic.
True, true. Well, in high school, you could've been a good Catholic girl, you know?
No. No, I thought it was the most hysterical thing I'd ever seen in my life, and the fact that we just kept putting the VHS tape back in, like, every day. We couldn't get enough of that movie, it was fantastic.
If you discover that movie at the right time, at the right age, it kinda blows your mind of how fantastic it is. I saw it for the first time I was 15. I couldn't stop watching it, and I showed all my friends. Everyone just fell in love with it within my friend circle and my school. The whole school was kind of taken over by Monty Python. And I even like the Flying Circus. Like, I was so pumped when a few months ago they added the Flying Circus and stuff to Netflix. Like, "Oh, hell yeah." There's a lot of it that's rough, but some of it is so good on the Flying Circus.
It's a special kind of person that likes Monty Python. I think
Mhm.
we're a niche group. Alright, so do you have a favorite author?
Favorite author? I don't read a lot of actual books, and what I do read, it's historical nonfiction. I'm kind of a boring person like that. So, like, I really liked Devil in the White City or the Mothman Prophecies, as much nonfiction you wanna call that, and then there's a Rasputin book I really enjoyed. Other than that, I don't read a ton. Right now, I'm reading a book about a local cryptid from Iowa that I'm really enjoying. That's by Chad Lewis. I'm gonna look up a couple of his other books. Hopefully, I'm gonna have him on Swolo for a bonus episode interview someday. If you want to count comic book writers as authors,
Absolutely.
Jason Aaron, I think, is fantastic. His work on the Thor series was fantastic. And then also Jeff Johns for his work on Brightest Day, Darkest Night. And then
Yep.
he just did the Doomsday series that just finished up a month or two ago. That's really good. And that's kind of like a universe turning event also. So I think Jeff Johns is really, really good.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, I don't think that we've done our Iowa episode on Mission Spooky. So what is this cryptid?
The Van Meter Visitor.
No, I don't know that one.
No one except people from Iowa knew him for the longest time, but now he's starting to get some traction. I think Lore did a quick little bit on him, and then Astonishing Legends podcast talked about him a little bit. So I was like, holy hell, all right, he's getting a little more mainstream. So basically, the small town of Van Meter, Iowa, it's right outside Des Moines, which Des Moines is in the heart of the state. In 1903, this weird creature just appeared in this small town and kind of terrorized it for like 4 days. At night at 1 o'clock, it would just show up in the street, make horrible sounds, and like peek into people's houses. And the whole town was like terrified. And the local paper wrote about it. So eventually, the townspeople got fed up with it and found out it was living in an abandoned mine outside of town. So the whole town like got their guns and shot at it. But it didn't do anything to the creature. It's like, oh, okay. And it just kind of walked back into the mine. That's the end of the story. That's what's wild. Cause I always thought, oh, they chased it out of town. But I'm reading the book, it literally ends with, we don't know what they did. Did they blow up the mine? We don't know. Credible witnesses saw this. The mayor of the town reported seeing it, and local business owners. The whole town was in a frenzy over this, and then just information just stops on it. So that's what's so fascinating is reading this book about it, because I thought I knew the story of how well they break it down and go into the history of it. It's even more fascinating than I thought. And the description of the creature is it kind of looks like a pterodactyl, but with like a flashlight on its head, because it talks about how, like, oh, it looks like this weird bat-winged creature that's like 8 feet tall, but it shined a light in people's eyes. And it's like, oh, it looked like an electric lamp. It's like, oh yeah, it's 1903. There wasn't a lot of flashlights around back then.
Yeah, okay, so basically, you just need to come on an episode of Mission Spooky and talk about this.
Oh hell yeah, I will for sure.
Okay, favorite musician. This one might be really hard too.
Hmm. If you asked me 3 years ago, 2 years ago, I would have a very decisive answer. Now it's a little more muddled. My girlfriend Ellie has really gotten into K hip hop, Korean hip hop,
Uh-huh.
and riding around in the car with her, I've been forced to listen to Korean hip hop. And there's this one artist that I absolutely I'm in love with, I guess. I don't know. I stan this K-pop artist, or he's not K-pop, K-hip hop, because he's Korean American and I'm Vietnamese American. So within hip hop, Asians aren't really popular in mainstream, especially here in America. But he's signed to Jay-Z's label in America, then owns his own labels in Korea. His name is Jay Park. He's kind of like my inspiration the last couple of years, because he's like, yeah, just if you want to do something, just go do it, whether you suck at it or not. And that's kind of what inspired me to do podcasting. He says that he does it all for Korean Americans and Asian Americans to prove that, like, hey, we're kind of a maligned race in America. Like, you're only allowed to do a few certain things, but break the mold and go out and do your own thing. And I'm like, oh hell yeah, that's awesome. So I just say Jay Park. If it was 2 years ago, I would say Dan Soupy Campbell from the Wonder Years. It's a pop punk band from Philadelphia, which you're from that area, so maybe you know them. If not,
I
that's
am,
okay.
and now I have to look them up because what the heck, man? How do I not know about a punk band?
Yeah, yeah. They're one of my favorites. I have a tattoo of their mascot on my leg. I love the Wonder Years, but yeah, Dan Soupy Campbell or Jay Park, my favorite artists.
And now I'm gonna go look up Jay Park. And this is why I ask these questions because then I get to hear new things that I'd never heard and people I've never heard of before. So,
Hell yeah.
all right, Logan, last one. What's your favorite word?
Probably fuck. I say fuck an awful lot. I guess I'm kind of that edgy teenager that never grew out of saying fuck every other word.
I can't wait as this progresses because I'm pretty sure that like fuck is like everybody's favorite word.
Yeah, probably.
Well, it's so useful. It's everything. It's a noun, it's an adverb, it's an adjective, it's
Yeah,
everything.
you can use it. As SpongeBob said, it's a sentence enhancer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, dude, you are killing it with everything that you've been doing.
Oh, well, thank you.
talking about, breaking molds and just going for it. I'm super excited to see what happens next. You are welcome back anytime. And like I said, if you would love to talk some cryptid spookiness over on Mission Spooky, we'd love to have you over there too.
Hell yeah. I'm a big cryptid nerd, so I can talk on and on about cryptids. Hell yeah, have me back on. I'll gladly do it.
Cool. Well, thank you again, Logan, so much for joining me.
Well, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to check out Logan's podcasts, Lost Legends, Tales of Thurne, a real play D&D 5e podcast, Sleep with the Light On horror and paranormal podcast, and his brand new kaiju podcast, Destroy All Podcasts. If you like what you hear, please give us a like and subscribe on Podchaser, YouTube, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Mission Spooky. As always, guys, watch all the things, read all the things, and good luck on your dice rolls.